Welcome to the Win All Day Everyday podcast. The podcast bringing you common sense insight into high performance sport for players, parents, coaches. We're covering topics that you as listeners want to talk about that you already discussed around the table or in the car as you head to the arena or even just over the fence with your neighbors. My name is Barrett Kropp and this is my co-host Justin Simpkins. Welcome to the Win All Day Everyday podcast presented by Prairie Hockey Academy. Today we have a great guest on the show with us. At this point, we've had an abundance of hockey people on the show. And, typically a lot of the stuff that we want to talk about stems from, our experiences in hockey. But today's guest, Ryan Hofer, he's a volleyball coaching legend. I'll go that far. I know he's probably going to laugh at us and say that's not true, but Ryan's been a Canada West, U Sports Canada West Coach of the Year. He's been a U Sports Coach of the Year. He's taken his women's volleyball team at Trinity Western University to the nationals for like 8 of the last 10 years or something like that. Won medals at 6 of them, including 2 championships, a silver last year, and could have got the repeat. Been with the national program on multiple occasions all over the world at different events, from Pan Ams to Volleyball Worlds and you name it. And currently has his team ranked number 2 in the country. And so, Ryan, that's not even covering half of it with you, brother. Welcome to the show, and glad you could join us tonight.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
How's the season going? What, that number 2 ranking, I know that number 1 would be good, but there's lots of season left ahead of you here. So how are things going so far?
For sure. This was a huge reloading year for me. We turned over 6 starters. And so with that, I had a whole younger crew, but a lot of them senior athletes that have been waiting for their opportunity. And so I think 2 might be a little bit high for us. It's kind of a combination of a few different things, but we're getting better every single weekend we play. And then we're looking forward to it.
Awesome. A lot of that, I know, after spending time with you over the last 9 years out there in Vancouver, stems from a lot of the culture that you've laid down. And when you took over the program and moved into the head coaching position, volleyball was on the map, of course. There's lots of great things going on, and Trinity always punches above their weight class. But what are some of the things that you've brought in as a culture piece to really help set your program apart from other universities?
I really believe that as coaches, we have the opportunity to impact more people in 1 year than some people do a lifetime. That's from Billy Graham. And so with that, I believe there's a huge stewardship and responsibility for us as coaches to create an environment where people can learn and grow. Number 1, can we learn and grow and get better as people, get better as friends, and get better in our sport and whatever that might be? My coaching philosophy revolves around strong individuals make strong teams. And there's a phrase that I like to use. If you build a program, you win or you lose. But if you build an individual, you win no matter the outcome. And so for me, I really want to invest in their lives. I really want to put relationships first. I want to make sure that they know that I'm with them. It's not me against them. If they don't perform, it's not me screaming at them in the locker room. It's a with them process where we're pulling each other aside going, how can I be better for you? We're obviously missing in these few different areas. What can I do better? How can I help you? Okay, what can you do? It's a lot of responsibility and ownership on myself and on my teammates, and then grinding it out a lot. Yeah. So that's just a little snippet.
Yeah, well, there's a lot there to unpack. Like that's probably about 4 podcasts alone just in your opening statement. So there's lots of culture pieces that you can pick apart there. But I guess how does that, we at Prairie Hockey Academy, we've got our slogans, and every team's got their slogans and stuff like that. But how do you unpack that so where rubber hits the road? Like, for example, when you're out recruiting, right? And you're trying to find the athletes to help come into your program, what are you looking for in an athlete that would really connect back to what you just talked about?
Well, on the skill level, we're looking for freaky skills. So that's the skill component. The culture component is a little bit of a different story. I want to look for people who can deal with hard things, who can have a hard conversation, who are not afraid of shying away from it. I look at how they're raised. I looked how they talk to their parents, how they communicate with their parents. And the best thing for me is every recruit that we meets with my team. And it's for the sole purpose of them evaluating them and seeing whether or not she's a Spartan. We have a phrase, SAS, SAS. Is she a Spartan? And is she someone that can fit in our culture? Is she someone that you want to be teammates with for 5 years? And so what we do is we actually go through a lot of personality stuff. So I'll do Strength Finder with them. I'll do colors with them. I'll spend a lot of time communicating with them. We do a whole little portfolio for them. So when they come in and we can get to know them better, and we spend a lot of time unpacking that. So it's not just I get to figure out how they are as an athlete. I want to know how they function as a person.
That's great stuff. Like it's not just, you're not just throwing out a piece of paper on the wall and saying, hey, tryouts for Spartans are next Tuesday, right? Like there's so much intentionality what you're doing there. And you know, I don't think people probably understand, you know, the quality of players that are at the youth sport level on the female game here in Canada. And you've done a brilliant job in leading that way. You know, the results are, you know, hanging in the rafters there at the Langley Event Center. But in terms of just some of your best moments in the last couple of years, what are some things that's materialized for you? You know, of course, winning and losing championships and being at nationals, but what is one or two really key things that stood out for you that, like, man, this is why I get up every morning to coach volleyball?
To be honest with you, the national finals last year, like our theme as a team last year was made for more. We were made for more than just winning volleyball teams. I didn't want a team that was just going to go out there, throw a couple more banners. We wanted to create a team that humanity needed at that time. Someone who thinks a little bit different, whose words are a little bit fresher, who acts and brings a lot of freedom to people's lives. And I can't think of another way of losing in a national final and going, whoa, my value as a person is not connected to the quality of the medal that I'm putting around my neck. I put that silver medal on and I wore it around my neck all night long because I did not want for a second the athletes to associate their value or their worth in a medal or a non-medal. And so I put it around my neck and I'm like, we're going to wear this for pride. And like, we were made for more. And it was interesting, like UBC and us have a pretty good rivalry. Like, and I just saw some walls break down as we even shook hands after the game. Some of my girls will tell you that was one of the highlights of their career, shaking hands after losing the national final in a manner that they still had joy in their eyes. They were still very proud of the effort that they put in. It was a cool moment for us.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thanks for sharing that. I know that a couple of weeks ago there was a convention or a sport conference that Trinity hosted out there, and one of our key pieces to our academy, JP Nerbin, was there as the keynote speaker, and Justin had the opportunity to be there during that that weekend as well. And there's lots of things that you take away as a coach, but what were some of the things that you maybe had from that coaching conference that maybe stood out for you?
What I love about JP stuff is, like, I've got all these culture pieces on my team, and after reading his material and after listening to him, it just helped me form a blueprint of everything in place. And it's like, oh, I've got it all in place. Now let's make it official. And so just before he had arrived there, I'd actually been working on it because I've been working on his book on taking, like, I like to use the analogy of Everest. Everest is really cool to get to the top. Like, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of money. There's a lot of danger involved in getting to the top. I ran across this quote by Ed Vestares, one of the top Everest summiters. And he says, climbing that mountain has to be a round trip. Getting off that mountain is more important than getting to the top. And so I started unpacking that, going, oh, what does that mean for my program? Yes, I want to win a national championship. That's our summit. I want to win a Canada West Championships. I want to be high ranked, all these things. But what does it mean to get off the mountain? What are the things that we have to unpack as a team that I want to make sure never get compromised? So it had to do with our commitment statements. It has to do with our values. It has to do with dealing with our fears. It has to do with the performance language, how we're going to speak to one another. And so we put all these things in place, and I kind of created a nice little picture with this mountain. And that was kind of what I got from JP and how he helped organize all the things that I've been doing already.
That's good. Good stuff.
Right. Obviously, Ryan, we got to meet there and, I guess a few hours before your home opener, and got to be around your girls and your team and watch your shoot around that, or not shoot around, sorry, I guess. It's a basketball term.
Pass.
That's right. But just being there to watch you kind of do your pregame warm up and routine that day. And, it felt different in the gym there, if I can just say that. I mean, I think, what you're saying for our listeners who might be having the opportunity to listen and maybe don't even know volleyball that well, but they're listening to you talk about building this culture and just how you've done it, and really convicting, I think, in things you're saying. And I would just say that when you sit in the gym, everything Ryan's saying right now, you feel as you watch his girls compete in practice even. I just think how they supported each other, how they, lifted each other up even when somebody, missed a serve, just in the warm-up side of it, just your assistant coaches, how they seamlessly ran through it, and just your authentic self as you walked the court and just connected with each of your members of your team. It was, for me, sitting back and watching and talking to JP as we watched a little bit, it was, it's a little bit of an orchestra in a symphony type of way, watching that play out and how you had that practice. And I could tell you were very intentional with everything you did. I don't think you were always like that. How have you evolved as a coach to get to that spot from when you first started?
Yeah. I don't know. You learn a lot as you grow. And you realize that one of the most important things in an environment is playfulness. You look at any organization, you look at any business, any church, any team, and if you cannot be playful, then there's going to be some serious consequences, which leads to fear, which leads to doubt, which leads to a whole lot of other stuff. And so the opposite of the opposite of let's say playful is seriousness. And so if you start to get too serious, then it starts to take the fun out of things, and then things are expected, and then that doesn't bring any joy. And so I really want a focused, alert, playful environment. The day that I can't joke around with my players and give them a high five and just kind of give them a little bit of a poke and have them poke me back is the day that I want to stop coaching, because I want to create an environment they are looking forward to coming to. Our overarching theme as a team is live free, play free. Freedom is a big thing, and I want to make sure that we lead with freedom rather than fear. That means we're not trying to use manipulation, guilt, shame, all these other motivational tools that are super easy to use and really hard to avoid. How can I use freedom? How can I use responsibility? How can I use challenge and support in there so that they're not being guilted into doing things or doing things out of fear?
That is fantastic. And I think, we've been talking lots about this idea of transformational coaching on our podcast here over the course of the episodes. And, the game of hockey, I think for a long time it's dealt with what some people would call old school coaching, or, someone like Joe Ehrman, who wrote a book, Inside Out Coaching, would call transactional style of coaching. And it's all fear-based and manipulative. And there's a lot of yelling and screaming and a lot of that takes away all that playfulness. Exactly what you're saying, and so it's fantastic to hear it's being done in the volleyball world, and that you're championing that. And I hope we're seeing more and more coaches across all sport taking a stance and an approach like that to create the joy back in our game and in our sports across our great nation.
Yeah, I'm not too sure why, but nobody likes to be yelled at. It doesn't matter who you are. Who likes to be yelled at? I don't. But for some reason we feel that yelling is going to motivate, or yelling is going to bring out more things in your athlete. And it might in the short term. But what I found is that there becomes this disconnect. So for me, relationships are so much more valuable than me yelling at an athlete and getting a little bit more out of them. But I actually don't think it works that way. I think when they have the freedom and they're playing free, if we want to really play free out there, fear can't be a part of that. We have to learn to be, I believe, selfless is fearless. And so to do that, you've got to rid all of those other things that are going to come in there and just kind of steal your joy and grab your doubt. And so I really try to avoid yelling. I try to avoid I can be stern. It's that whole art of support and challenge. A lot of coaches are really good at the support and not so good at the challenge, and some are good at the challenge and not so good at the support. But when you have both side by side, man, that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Hey, tell me, what are maybe 3 things that you would tell your younger self? If you're a younger coach that's just getting into the game, you've probably said a bunch of them, but if you were to sit back and say you're a young volleyball coach or any sport, here's 3 things I'd really like you to know.
I think the first and primordial thing is, can you create a place of belonging for your team, especially on a female team? I think actually it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the team. If you create a place of belonging, people will feel safe there. And I wish I'd emphasized that more earlier on. I wish I had emphasized the whole aspect of strong individuals make strong teams. And what I mean by that is, who are the players who we struggle with the most? A lot of times it's the players on the sidelines that aren't getting the playing time, that aren't getting the minutes, whatever that might be. And a lot of times their value as a person or their identity as a person goes towards, hey, I'm not getting playing time. They think of the people in the stands. They think of their value as a person. And so I wish I had emphasized your value and your worth is not connected to playing time. I want to help you become a strong individual who can manage not being on the floor, who can do hard things, who can take a frustrating moment and have a hard conversation about that. And so I wish I had done more of that earlier and really taken some risks to have hard conversations. For the first time in my coaching career last year, I finally didn't get feedback from athletes going, I wish you communicated with me a little bit more, meaning you had hard conversations with me and were telling me the truth straight up. I was one of those truth avoiders. I'd sugarcoat things. I kind of candy coat it a little bit when they just want me to be direct. This is where you stand. Here's the process to help you move forward. Let's get after it. And so I wish I'd done that 20 years
8
earlier.
National medals. And just last year, 8 national medals, and just last year is the first time that you started having, those direct, telling the truth to your athletes, and got great feedback from them at the end of the year. And so what you're saying is that even someone, at your level and level of success and culture you've built, you're still growing and recognizing better ways to do it.
Yeah, because you have those great players that did a lot of starting. But the players that I didn't manage as well were the secondary players, or the players weren't dressing. Mm-hmm. And instead of having the conversation with them every single time, making no assumptions, going, hey, so-and-so, this is where things are at. This is where I see you. Anything I can do to help you? And boom, and just being really direct with them. And now I do it almost on a daily basis. I try to confront issues right away so they don't spin out of control, whether it's with an assistant coach, whether it's with a teammate, with the manager. I try to have those hard conversations early, because if you wait, they just spin out of control. Address it now. Let's get it over with. Great stuff.
I mean, that's going to be a clip that I know we're going to put that one as a little teaser, because there's, I've struggled with that in my own career. I know that there's always these, you just want to just keep everyone happy, and you're just trying to balance that. But you're so right, Ryan. Like, at the end of the day, people just want to know where they're at. And I'm the same way. Like, if I'm struggling with something, I want people to hold me accountable, and we just can't assume their players know where they need to be at. We got to help them, be direct with them in that way.
It was the last thing I did before I walked up into this room. Like, we're traveling on Thursday, and I already know today that a certain player isn't traveling with us. So I'm like, let's do this. Like, so I pulled her aside and just said, hey, you need to know that you're doing this, this, and this that are excellent. You're doing a wonderful job of this. In saying that, though, you're not coming along this weekend, but I want you to know that I'm going to create some opportunities down the road for you to do some other things, because you're making us better every single day. And that's so, great. And then I said, hey, do you have any questions? Leaving it open. Okay, away we move.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love how you handle that. We've talked a lot about your success with your team there at Trinity, and we've probably got a bunch of other questions that we want to ask you. But I just feel this is a good segue here, because that I know you've known you, walked those hallways at Trinity with you for almost a decade. So I know how you and your wife roll in terms of just always wanting to be excellent and have a heart for your athletes and the whole program. But you've got some boys that everyone in hockey knows who Connor Bedard is, and I think a lot of people outside of hockey know who Connor Bedard is. He's having a great year with Chicago Blackhawks. He's an 18-year-old that's on a pace to score 54 goals this year. He's been a prodigy in the Vancouver area since he was knee-high to a grasshopper, and that the hockey world has known about that. Your boy, Brody, he's the Bedard of volleyball. And he's, ever since my youngest had a chance to play like a snippet of club ball with him out there in Vancouver, and he came home the one night, he's like, "Dad, Brody's unbelievable." And so it's been interesting to watch that journey of Brody. And people say your younger son's even better. So the questions I sort of want to have around this is, how have you and Carol, your wife, brought balance in your household to raise brilliant kids, aside from them being really good athletes? But how have you kind of kept them hungry and humble at the same time? Like, what has that been like for a parent journeying with a stud athlete? Even though it's, this is, like I said, it's a hockey podcast with a lot of our listeners from hockey. I think that there's a lot of similarities that are going to run down the road here. Is like, if you've got a stud in your home, or a great female athlete, great male athlete, like how do you couch that?
Right. Strategies around parenting a high performance athlete.
Yeah.
I find reality is the best teacher out there. And what I mean by that is I let the consequences of reality also to have an effect. So if there were certain things that my kids did, if they needed to be held accountable, responsibility is a big thing in our house. You take responsibility for your behaviors. You take responsibilities for your actions. And so with my boys, I was in a lot of their practices. I helped coach all their club teams, but I rarely ever talked volleyball with them unless they wanted it. I didn't take them out and play volleyball unless they came and asked me for it. When they complained to me in the car about playing time, about coaches, about teammates, my number one phrase was this: "Son, I love watching you be a part of a team." End. "Dad, the playing time, it's not that." "Son, I love watching you be a part of a team." Done. And so my son, like Brody, who's doing really well, he's playing professionally over in Poland right now. He would come, he wasn't starting, the kids were picking on him a little bit. I would encourage him and help him a little bit in that area. But son, I love watching you be a part of a team. And I let him struggle and I let him work through things. And I didn't bail him out right away. And he had to fight for it and gripe and get after it. Same with Tyson, my middle son, like being a part of a team. He's a little bit on the undersized, but he does this great job of working hard. And so I never spoke with them about performance. The only thing I held them accountable to was their behavior. If they were a bad teammate, they heard from me. But if they didn't take responsibility for actions or behavior, they heard from me. Other than that, I just tried to be a dad.
That's cool. Real cool. And just give us an update. Where's Brody at? Just so people know, like he was a dominant player in Canadian university sport, was on the national team since he's been, whatever, was it U16s? He was already on the national scene. They've qualified for the next Olympics, right? So, and now he's graduated, got his degree, and now he's playing in Poland. Now people think, well, like Poland doesn't have that great of hockey, but man, they've got some pretty good volleyball over there. So just talk about his journey, where he's at.
So how I compare the volleyball in Poland is it's the same as the hockey in Canada. So how we look at hockey in Canada is how Poland looks at volleyball. And so they take everything very, very seriously there. And he's kind of getting the cat's meow of it, of what that looks like. And so he's in a place called Radom. It's in the Polish league, the top Polish league. And so it's one of the lower teams. And so he's signed a 2-year contract to go and be with them and help build that program there, and then slowly work his way up and just see what kind of contracts that he gets. And so he's getting playing time. He wanted to go where he could get some playing time fairly early, but he's learning the life of a professional athlete, to know what it's like to get reamed out by your own fans after a game for not performing. Like, they call them over, ream them out, and because they've just traveled 2-3 hours to another site, and they're like, we're not coming. Like, whoa, that was interesting. So it's quite the journey.
Yeah. And obviously that, that part of the world there, it's bordering up onto Ukraine there. And so I'm sure there's been some nervous moments for you guys, but obviously you're trusting the process of his journey and the things that he's accomplishing. That's probably something pretty proud that you guys have had. Yeah,
for sure. We're looking forward to going over there at Christmas time and seeing him play a little bit, to see what that environment's like, and just to kind of support him where we can. The hours are kind of crazy, so I'm up pretty early to watch any games that he plays, but it's neat to see him compete at that high level. And when I watch these games, I'm like, whoa, this is high level volleyball. Like, it's the best volleyball on the planet right now, other than, let's say, the Olympic Games or national teams. And so he's looking forward to trying to qualify to be on the Olympic team. So our Canadian team qualified, and he was part of that 14, but they're going to cut down to 12. And so it's obviously one of his goals to be on that team, and we'll see if he can do it. If I can say this as a parent, is I really try to make sure that, whether it's any of my sons, I try to make sure that, and we always love our athletes, but it's really making sure that all of my kids, no matter where they're at, that they know that they have my attention, that they have my support. And not just because Brody's playing in this big professional league, but that, Tyson's there. I'm watching Tyson's game here. He might not be starting on the time. He might not be getting on the floor, but I want to know that his value as a person and as my son is not connected at all to playing time, traveling, national team, whatever it is. And I believe as parents, it's working really hard and intentional to do things to make that happen. And I'm not perfect at it, and I fail, but it's something we try to do.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, we have that, we see that in the sport of hockey, and obviously you see it in volleyball, and I'm going to then assume it happens in high performance sports everywhere, where parents just live vicariously through their kids sometimes, and they sometimes forget that, some of the stuff you talked about earlier with your team, that fun factor, and wanting to make sure that there's an element of joy that you can still play the sport. Sometimes as parents, we short circuit that because we just think that maybe if they did one more thing or one extra thing, and all of a sudden the ditch is filled with great athletes that just don't enjoy it anymore. And so I appreciate that perspective. It's refreshing to know that there's parents out there that are really wanting the best for their kids and just guiding and providing for them.
You're selecting a really competitive roster. Coming up here in Regina, by the time this airs, you're going to have flown to Regina and have played your games in Regina, and you've already had to let one girl know on your team she doesn't get to make the trip with you on the plane. But how are you selecting? Is there anything competitive cauldron type of a thing, or something that a performance thing that you guys are looking at weekly in practice so that you can, put the best, the most prepared, the most ready team on the court?
For years, I did the competitive cauldron, like Anson Dorrance's cauldron. And so I did that for years. I developed my own. We would record and stat everything. And I've gone a little bit of away from that. I still create a highly competitive environment. I still use numbers to make almost all of my decisions. And so I take those numbers from practice and I crunch them a different way. But I just found that it was almost too pitting people against one another a little bit too much. And I just didn't like just the grind of that. And then it was a lot of work to manage it. And so I think we found a few alternatives of still getting the numbers that we need, still providing opportunities for people to kind of perform and put out their best, and also put the best people that are on the floor performing.
Nice.
Good stuff. One last segment that we try to have on every episode is not information, but advice that you as our guest would provide for parents, players, and
Well, we said coaches before.
coaches. Yeah. So
I think it's fantastic that
we've got a ton of information
coach, right?
from the coaching side of it already from you.
Yeah.
And even I think I think you've given us some really good parent advice. But for young players out there that are in any sport, like what is just some advice, that you would say, coming from a high level, you're a university scout coming to recruit at a high school here in Saskatchewan. What are some things that you're looking at from a volleyball perspective, and then also just in general from a true sport perspective?
Yeah. To kind of go back, like for me, I'm looking for freaky skills that I can't teach. So a lot of times that's length or height. It could be strength. It could be jump. It could be how hard you hit the ball. It could be how fast you move. And I think there's also some freaky skills when it comes to character. Like, how hard do you work? Like, I've got an athlete right now. She's going into her 5th year. She hasn't started for 5 years. And all of a sudden, actually, I've got a few of them. The hard work that they've put in over 5 years has compounded over and over. And now she's one of the best. They're some of the best players that are in our gym because of the work that they've put in. So advice to a younger player is never shy away from hard work and find the best that you can learn and grow from. Willing to pay a little bit of money for that, to get the instructions, to get the discipline, and to see that growth. What mechanics do you need to change? What tactics do you need to change? And kind of move on from there. And so nothing replaces hard work. And then working smart in that process is going to get you where you need to go.
Yeah, that's great. And those are things that we would echo to the hockey world. So it doesn't change. You want guys that can skate, pass, shoot, all that other stuff. Yeah. They need to have that hard work. But, that story of your 5th years that, haven't seen much game time in those 5 years. And now that they're the best athletes in your gym, I want everyone to hear that. That's a great story for people to understand that it takes time. It's not just an overnight success. There's those outliers that are out there, of course, that are going to get time as a freshman. But at the end of the day, it's you got to put in the work. There's no short circuiting that.
I've got 2 right now who are in their 5th year, in the same position, and both haven't started or played much over their years. I gave one weekend. I gave one another weekend. I'm giving them opportunity, and we're driving home. And the one that didn't play the second weekend in the van or in front of her entire team after the game, just basically raised her beyond belief. And I'm sitting here going, whoa, what a tribute to character. Here's this athlete who's maybe getting not beat out, but her fellow teammate is playing a little bit better than she is, and she does nothing but praise her. I'm like, that's a testament to your character right now. That's why I love being in the gym with you.
Great stuff.
So good, Ryan. This has been fantastic. I think it's been great just to have a volleyball coach to come on, somebody who's coaching female athletes, champion athletes, and just to hear the culture that you've built over your time there. I just think, I think people that can get out to Langley Event Center or to Regina, Saskatchewan, to watch a Trinity Western Spartans game, just to see your girls compete and to support each other and the camaraderie you've built with that club. Hearing you talk about it, I know it gives me lots of energy, and I hope our listeners can take some really great pieces from today's episode.
Cool. Thanks for having me, guys. This was a blast. You do a great thing. I'm going to have to start surfing around your website and listen to a few other ones that you put out there.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for making time in your day to be on the show. And to our listeners, we're thankful that you've joined us for another episode of the Win All Day Everyday podcast. We look forward to hearing you give us some more comments and some more feedback. Last week's episode, we had lots of questions that we were addressing that you sent our way. And so we ask that you continue that feedback. Give us a like at the bottom. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any great episodes. And Ryan, say hi to Carol and the rest of the family, and also the Spartan family. Miss the rest of them there. And you guys have got a great thing going on.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate the time, and all the best to you and all your endeavors there.